Alrighty, happy Saturday. Hello, everyone. We are here with Emily Austin, the author of our February book, Is This a Cry for Help? And I'm going to give a little short intro. Emily was born in St. Thomas, Ontario, Canada. She earned her BA in English Lit and Religious Studies and her master's in Library and Information Science. So she does have a background in libraries, which is the focus of her latest book, and also in teaching and working as an information architect. She currently resides in Ottawa. Her writing often centers lesbian characters and explores themes of mental health, religious trauma, and neurodivergence, which are Sapph-Lit's favorite things to talk about. So, of course, you are our most read author. We've read every single one of your books. Everyone in this room will someday be dead. Interesting facts about space, gay girl prayers, we could be rats, and your latest fourth novel, Is This a Cry for Help? So welcome back, Emily. This is our
So
fourth
much.
chat.
It's so nice of you to read all my books. Thank you.
I mean, how can we not? They're constantly on the radar and we love them. Yeah, exactly, Sophia. So the first line in this book just pulls you right in. And it's quite shocking. The catalyst event in the book is someone watching porn in the library where our main character, Darcy, works. How did you come up with that? Was it based on a real experience as your time and as a librarian? I mean, I know plenty of librarians and porn be watched in libraries.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely is. Yeah, so I was taking new employee orientation at a public library when I first started writing this book, and it was during like the height of COVID, and so it was on Zoom, and my camera was off. And a lot of what we were talking about was like, how to request leave, boring things, how to work an e-reader, things that I already knew. But then we got into the intellectual freedom policy, the porn watching policy, and they said you can watch porn in the library. And I thought, oh, I should start writing a book. And because my camera wasn't on, I was like, I'm gonna spend this hour where they tell me about how to request leave writing the first page of that book.
Oh my God. So the way that Darcy responds to it, I feel like is kind of the opposite of how your regular, degular person would think to respond to it. Darcy's like, they're not jerking it, like they're not bothering anyone. There's a privacy screen. It's fine.
Right.
And she doesn't do anything, and that kind of spirals into the later events of the book. What was that training that they like? Do they tell you like there are certain things you can and can't do? Like
Yeah.
what was your impression of that when you heard it?
Yeah, well, with Darcy, I wanted her to be someone who's really process oriented and likes to follow like a rule. So that's why she
Hmm.
behaved that way. Public libraries don't all have the same way of handling this. Like I wouldn't be surprised to hear of lots of libraries that don't handle it this way. But to be honest, I see it as a green flag when they
Hmm.
do, because one thing you learn about when you go to school to be a librarian is the importance of intellectual freedom. And when you really sort of philosophically think about censorship, and especially if you were zeroing on porn, like some people would consider like heated rivalry porn. Like there's a level of
Thank you,
there's
Canada.
yes, yeah, Ottawa too, which is where I am, so come visit Ottawa. But yeah, there's this sort of slippery slope, and the idea that we can see it it relates to book banning too, like the idea that
Yeah.
you start to say what is not allowed and what isn't. It's a really slippery slope. But yeah, the public library I worked at did allow people to watch porn, and it was often something that every time there was an incident that got the attention of the public, there would be an
Mm.
article about it in the newspaper. There would be people responding similarly to how people respond in the book. I took some of that particular library, it's Ottawa Public
Hmm.
Library, but
Hmm.
I took some of that, some of the responses from leadership in the
Mm.
library, and pretty much put them exactly as they said them in the book. But yeah,
Oh,
so
that's amazing. I mean, also, I loved Darcy defending like romance novels to
right.
to
Yeah,
her friends and
yeah,
being like, well, you clearly haven't read much romance if you're not reading spicy romance.
yeah.
Um, and then also thinking like, well, who has the right to access porn? And we really see the public library system here. as, a community resource and, for immigrants, for unhoused people, for people who need to work on their resumes. And Darcy really has this kind of justice focused neurodivergence, which
Yeah.
feels so much like how I think. And I
Oh,
think she's like my new favorite character of yours.
oh,
She really goes on about how she doesn't understand the public's focus on book banning and on like attacking DEI when the library's real issues surround this underfunding and, being an overextended community resource. So like what I mean, I know you were doing this like training and that really kind of inspired the first page of the book, but was there anything else that kind of made you think, oh, I really want to write a book about libraries?
yeah. Well, I mean, I do feel lucky to be writing books that center lesbian and queer characters.
Hmm.
And I am someone who, when I write a book, I like to think of, like I was raised Catholic, for example, which is why I've written like everyone in this room will someday be dead and gay girl prayers. I was thinking of what sort of ingredients I have in my own cupboard kind of thing.
Mm,
And obviously librarianship is one that you know, that's one thing that I have access to. And I thought, again, like thinking of how I'm lucky to write books about lesbian characters. And part of I've probably talked about this before, but part of when I was studying to become a librarian, I took this collection development course and learned a bit about, and this was a while ago, but I did some research about how LGBTQIA plus fiction is represented in libraries,
mm,
and did like sort of a like some analysis of the publishing landscape of those kinds of books, and things have improved a lot, but at that time especially it was pretty bad. So I'm aware of like being lucky about the point in time that I'm in where I'm able to publish books about lesbian characters. And I just kind of thought like, okay, well, it kind of feels like I am really positioned to write a book about libraries, and this particular, book banning is obviously becoming increasingly
yeah,
concerning. Yeah. So yeah.
yeah. Um, the other kind of, major catalyst in this book is Darcy processing her former relationship with her ex-boyfriend Ben with the incredible Dr. Jong in therapy. Um, I personally had to just leave my old therapist, so seeing a lovely therapist-client
Oh, I'm
relationship
sorry.
portrayed on the page,
It's
I
hard
was
to
like,
find a
oh,
good therapist. It's a
it
tough.
it is
It
really
is.
hard.
Yeah.
But through, these sessions that we see on the page, the reader's learning more and more about Darcy's relationship with Ben. And it's revealed that he was 10 years older than her and she was 18 when they first started dating. Been there, loved that rep.
I'm sorry.
I mean, listen, who
Yeah.
hasn't? I'm super interested in what drew you to writing about this kind of like grooming relationship that really intersects with compulsory heterosexuality and what you wanted to get across because reading Darcy process her own compet really felt like I was rereading the lesbian master doc for the first time.
Yeah.
And I just want to hear your thoughts behind all of
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. So Darcy sort of, I think, differentiates herself from some of the characters in my previous books in that she has friends. She
Mm-hmm.
has a functioning, like relatively healthy romantic relationship.
Mm-hmm.
She is, successful on paper. I would say like she's a librarian. She's happily married. She has a group of friends, and that isn't the case for, not that you have to be happily married, but like the other characters in my books, struggle to have relationships and struggle to have friendships and are not necessarily, um, in alignment with their goals. And so I wanted to show, and this book is about book banning too. So
Yeah.
I wanted her to be an example of someone who has tried to follow, she's process oriented. So she's tried to follow this
Mm.
script or this process that women or people raised as women are given as kids. And I wanted to show how, despite doing her best to do that, because of the impact of things like not having access to information or representative things in media, she struggled to recognize herself. So despite being someone who really is really positioned to be really functioning and
Mhm.
successful and all that, she is still negatively impacted by things like not seeing herself in media.
Yeah.
And so I wanted her experience with compulsory heterosexuality to be a representative of that, but also, the experience that like women, regardless of sexual orientation, often have this experience where there's like a power imbalance between them and men. Women are often in relationships before their frontal lobe develops, where they are sort of taken advantage of. I remember when what is it, Teen Mom was on TV all the time.
Oh
One
my God,
interesting thing,
throwback.
yeah, one interesting thing I remember realizing when watching that is that all the dads in the show were not teens. They were all like 10 years older. And when you dig into like even like that, like you dig into the statistics about teen pregnancy, it's not the dad who it's almost always there's almost always this discrepancy. So anyways, I see that as also being like the result of lack of education, lack of access to information, lack of and this prioritization of a particular um, you know patriarchal, sexist, racist point of view, which is what is driving uh, book banning and censorship and all the horrors of today.
100%. And also, I mean, it's the like sexualization of young girls.
Yes.
And it really had me thinking about, I found it so interesting. You chose Ben's pet name for Darcy to be Dove.
Mm-hmm.
Because I kind of it's it's it kind of at first freaked me out a little because that's my dad's pet name for my
Oh no,
and
you just
I have it tattooed on my shoulder.
oh
No, it's so okay. It's okay because I really separated the two, and I was like, oh, this is really so fucked for this guy who's 10 years older, like, and she's 18 to
no.
call her Dove because doves are like this symbol of innocence, and he really was like leaning into the like I'm your protector role. And Darcy has this moment where she's like, I don't need a protector. I'm actually a very self sufficient, like confident person.
Mm-hmm.
And then towards the end of the book, I really saw Joy taking Darcy out to the petting zoo and she's crying while holding this lamb, which is like this another, kind of long held symbol of, would accidentally have the dove tattoo. Thanks, Clara. This lamb is like this symbol of, innocence as well. And my art history brain was thinking, oh, well, the dove is what Ben exploited in her youth, and the lamb is what Darcy is protecting in her adulthood of like that
Oh.
herself after this processing. Am I off here? Was that intentional? Like, why dove? Why the lamb? Am
Oh.
I crazy?
Well, I like what you're saying, so let's say that that's definitely intentional. That's I don't know if I would have put it exactly like that, but I'm sure I was definitely thinking of yeah, I mean, I wouldn't pick her nickname being Dove without any like symbolic thought to that. So I was definitely
Mm,
thinking something along the lines of that. And the
mhm.
image of her holding a lamb, I was also sort of something along the lines of that. But I like how you said it. So let's say that's exactly my intention.
Amazing. You can take that.
Yeah.
Um, we had a question from a fellow librarian and Sapph-Lit named Christina, and she had three absolutely wonderful questions for you. The first one, as a fellow librarian, I'm especially curious about setting and community context. Libraries can operate so differently depending on their geography, funding, and the communities they serve. How might Darcy's story have unfolded differently if she worked in a rural library versus a large urban system?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that would definitely impact things. I think the community that you're serving and the way that even things like the intellectual freedom policy would obviously be
Mm,
impacted potentially by that audience. I do see Darcy as being someone who is, like you were saying at the beginning, she's got the brand of neurodivergence where she has a strong sense of justice. And I think that regardless of the setting she was in, I do see her as being someone who would, either want to or would influence that the library, do things in a way that she sees as being morally aligned, or at least in alignment with what you're taught as a librarian. So,
Mhm.
but yeah, I think the yeah, like the impact of doing queer programming. I set this in like a small but liberal community on the outskirts
Mm.
of a larger community. So it's sort of intentionally meant to be. Um, I see that as a place where this could happen, where you would have potentially an audience of people who would want queer programming, for example, and
Yeah.
who would want that
Yeah.
mixed with, because there could also be people who would be around that community who would take issue with that. Obviously, that would happen in lots of environments as well, but
Yeah.
yeah, I think that would impact things. I guess is the long rambling answer to that.
Yeah, no, that just reminded me of that person walking in and being like, "There's a drag queen reading to children," and it's just this old, like elderly
Right.
woman in an old lady wig,
Yeah.
and I'm like this like the gender policing.
Mhm.
It was like such a like very like on the nose like demonstration of like transphobia hurts cis people too.
Yes. Yeah.
And I love that. Okay, Christina, second question, which you already kind of touched on. I appreciated seeing a stable, loving marriage between two women on the page. As much as I love a chaotic lesbian spiral in fiction, there is something quietly radical about portraying an everyday queer partnership. What drew you to write Darcy and Joy's relationship as steady and domestic rather than dramatic? And I love this question because, I mean, this was the first time we've seen a character of yours be like married
Yeah.
happily.
Yeah. I wanted to be honest, that's hard for me to write. It's hard for me to I find it easier to write people struggling in relationships and having, I think it's because that is an easier way to write humor. And I think it's because I have my own, like emotional intimacy problems that make it hard for me to write about like earnestly about a happy relationship.
Mhm.
So it was sort of tough for me to write that, but I did feel like that would serve this story. And I did feel like, reflecting on my previous books, I thought that's something that I'm not representing well enough. And the truth is that obviously this isn't always the case. There's lots of chaotic, messy lesbian relationships, really, really brutal ones for sure. But there are also a large number that are like, Darcy's and Joy's, where there is this sort of, contented, calm relationship.
Mhm.
And that's, it was important to me to write it that way. And I wanted it to also contrast against her relationship with Ben. And I wanted it
Yeah.
to show how, when she is, more in alignment with her authentic self, how that positively impacts her life. And how, to sort of show what an example of this, like, very sort of, I don't know, like kind, nice thing is sort of being attacked. It's not
Yeah.
like a, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Melanie in the chat says, I love how they were with their cats. I so wish Kyle could stay and they could be a little cat trio, but
Yeah.
those girl cats were like, absolutely no
Yeah.
chaotic orange boys allowed here. This is a
Oh,
girl's
yeah.
house.
Yeah.
I love that. And then Christina's last question. Libraries have historically functioned as quiet sanctuaries for queer people. Amen to that. Did you consciously think about the library as a queer space while writing this novel, and how does that shape Darcy's journey?
Yeah. I mean, I do see the light. I think one thing that I've discovered, I can't remember if we were already chatting on film, but there are so many lesbian librarians. There's like this large population of lesbrarians, someone told me is what people are saying.
Love
Um, I do think that, you know, the library is as being like an open place where you can find all information without your
that.
mom reading your internet search history, for example. It obviously aligns well with being a queer sanctuary. I also see it as being that for um, everyone though. Like I see it as being, and I like Darcy, I do have the and like you, Nina, I do have the sort of this justice neurodivergence. And
Hmm.
yeah, and I am someone who would, like in library school, for example, and I'm just sure this is something you learned too, was learning about how important it is to be like genuinely neutral and nonpartisan in a space for everyone. And in my own like experience working in a library, I would see a library definitely as being a place that needs to be open and equitable for everyone, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that's kind of the point that Darcy tries to make to Declan, which I love that you made him blonde. Thank you. Thank you for giving us an evil blonde man to hate on the page.
That's They're always
Um,
evil and blonde.
no, exactly. Um, and yeah, I feel like there's, you know, she sits down with Declan and there's this moment like with the human library, which I love that idea and would love to talk about that pin in the human library. But she sits down with Declan and he's like, this isn't a safe space for me. Like, you're only making this a safe space. Like, diversity doesn't make this a safe space for people with traditional values. And
Right.
she's like, dude, like, we had a conservative author here, like, a couple weeks ago. And exactly, Clara in the chat, I love Darcy taking on Declan and not giving into the fight he wanted. And I feel like often people say, like, if both sides could just sit down and have a conversation, like, a lot of problems would actually really get solved.
Right.
And I mean, I feel like that's kind of what Darcy, like, attempted, and, to mostly have him not make a scene because men are so dramatic. Um, but like it didn't they agreed to disagree in the end. And I'd love to hear about your process of like Declan as a character who, we find out, spoiler alert, people, he was like sending emails to Mordecai and Darcy being like, I know your secret. And Darcy's poor nude reflection in the faucet of the bathtub, which was so funny. um but yeah, talk to me about Declan and like what purpose you wanted him to serve in the story.
Yeah, I think I also, when I was writing this book, something that was happening in Ottawa was
Mm,
there was this convoy of it was like an anti-vax movement that had taken
mm,
over with like trucks our downtown area, and they were there for a very long time, and they were like blaring horns and stuff in the middle of the night, and I live in Ottawa, so it was
mm,
like very something very much in my face. And so I started this bad habit, it wasn't good for me, of looking up the people, like finding those people's social media and looking at what they were up to. And so that Declan is inspired by, like, is a combination of those characters, I would say, those people. And I was genuinely thinking, the other experience that I have is that I grew up in a small conservative community, and I noticed, like when I went on Instagram, for example, I would click a story and it would be someone who lived like downtown Ottawa, like a coworker with like a newborn baby, and there's like beep 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 for like days, so they had to, like, it was terrible. And then the next story would be someone from my hometown, like, I support the convoy. And I was like, okay, this is an interesting thing to observe. So I was writing about Declan partly to make my creeping of those people feel like not just like a corrosion
it's
of my.
research, it's not
Yeah,
creeping.
exactly. Yeah, yeah. And I was genuinely trying to understand their perspective, and like I was trying to understand where they were coming from. And I could see in almost, and obviously I have my own biases, but I could see how they were being impacted by like disinformation and what they
Mm,
were influenced by. And I could see that there were commonalities in terms of, like, not always, but like certain socioeconomic struggles that were in common. um anyway, so, and I could see how they sort of formed community with each other. It was an interesting sort of social thing. But anyway, so I was looking at that, and I was trying to write Declan with the idea that I was thinking, okay, like, try to actually show this perspective, which I couldn't really, the reality is that it's a flawed perspective. I'm sorry, but it is. And
It
so
is.
the reality of his character, I did want to be like, okay, like another thing you learn about in library school, for example, is that you learn about intellectual freedom, and you learn that you need to be a library that would have potentially books, for example, that would reflect all different views and beliefs. And you need to like have your space potentially open for people of all different views and beliefs, but that doesn't mean that you need to provide a room for the KKK. There is a distinction between hate speech and all of that, and
Mhm.
intellectual freedom. Anyways, I could go on, but I was mostly reflecting on those people that I was like unhealthily creeping, and I
No,
wanted to show.
researching. You were
Yes, yes.
researching.
And I was sort of what you're saying about the idea that, maybe if we sit down and talk to each other, I do see, like on an individual level, I do see, depending on a number of variables and your own personal safety, I do see like a one-on-one human interaction with another person can potentially positively impact things.
Yeah.
Um, but it requires more than that. And the problem, similarly to how like the library is impacted by these systemic issues, these sorts of problems are not resolved. Like there's a systemic problem. There's something at the root that is not resolved with just human conversation. But, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Um, what was the significance of you showing the human library as a part of the library programming in the novel? Um, it was the first time I've ever heard of something like that, and you really I love the humor around, Darcy writing on the whiteboard and everyone can see like lesbian, someone with AIDS,
Right.
priest.
Right.
And yeah, I loved that idea and how she got all of these people together, and it really does kind of get on that one-on-one individual level. But yeah, I'd love to hear about like, have you participated in a human library? Have you seen one done at a library you worked at? Yeah, tell me about
Yeah.
that
I do
idea.
think, yeah, no, I haven't been a part of it. And it wasn't something I even learned about in school, but I've heard about them. And I watched a
Mm,
number of like videos about how to conduct them. And there's a whole website about like with like a toolkit about how you do this.
I love that.
Yeah, I do think, like sort of related to what we're talking about, I do think that there is, um, really having a human connection with someone who has a different experience than you, in good faith, is
Mm,
is beneficial to some of the challenges brought up in this book. And the idea, the book again is sort of about censorship and book banning and the importance of having access to information, not only that reflects you, but also that reflects uh, people that you're not like.
mm,
Because that's how you learn, right? Like that's how you understand things, and that's a big argument for why, and I've said this a bunch, but a big argument for why even like I would support even having information and material that I strongly don't agree with in a public library, partly because I think that having access to information that you don't agree with is needed to fully form what you do agree with. When you
yeah.
think of even like a debate, when people are arguing, even if you agree with one side, you'll probably leave the debate agreeing even stronger if you're right, because
Yeah.
you will have seen your argument argued. Anyway, so all that to say, I think just I wanted the human library to further show the importance of understanding different people, different viewpoints, having access to different experiences, and the importance of that, and how that connects to
Hmm.
the importance of a public library.
I love that. No, and 100% like hearing the opposite side strengthens your argument if it's the right argument for you.
Exactly. Exactly.
And I think Darcy really gets into that when she's talking about her cousin. I think his name was Tucker.
Oh
And
yeah.
she's like, I've never felt stronger in my beliefs than when Tucker's talking to me at Christmas dinner
Right.
about this, that, and the third. And I'm like, I see that
Yeah.
absolutely. Um, Little fun question. Was Enid that Darcy mentioned on the list of people she went out with, Enid from Interesting Facts?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my
Well, now you know.
God. Little Easter egg. I love that.
Yeah, I thought that would be
Um,
fun.
it was fun. Enid mentioned. Okay, so a consistent theme in your books, along with, neurodivergence and lesbians, is mommy issues.
Okay.
And the ending here with Darcy's mom is actually kind of sweet. She realizes like her mom is so obsessed with her and so in love with her through that creepy Facebook wall and but like which kind of I feel like in a way calmed her fears that she became someone her mom would never love after she broke up with Ben. And I feel like she kind of made peace with her mom at the end. Do you think so? Like, I mean, her mom was such a bitch.
Yeah.
But I was
Yeah.
like, this is such a mom thing to do to like be like, you never call me. Why are you calling me? You must need something.
Right. Yeah.
Um, oh yeah, Dr. John was also a common thread. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
We love the Emily Austen universe. Um, but yeah, talk to me about mommy issues.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I wanted so the mom, one thing I like to write about in general, which I tried to do in this book with Ben and with Darcy's mom, and even with Declan to a certain extent, is the idea that though I do think there are some people who are like really purely bad, like your president, but for the most part, I think most people have, um, most people contain multitudes, and most people are not purely villains. Like most people have good and bad things. And with the mom in particular in this story, um, a lot of what the story is exploring is like the impact on of compulsory heterosexuality and the patriarchy in general on Darcy.
Hmm.
And I
Hmm.
also wanted to show both with her mom and with Joy's mom the impact on even heterosexual women, which is, like her mom, Darcy's mom wants the best for her. And because of the way that she has been conditioned to believe, she does have ignorance and biases around what she wants her daughter to do in order
Hmm.
to live a happy life, that's part of what her situation is. And then with Joy's mom had this experience where she left Joy and her sibling when they were little, and like realized that maybe she didn't want to be a mom and regretted that that was the path she took. So similarly, I was trying to show the impact of people, because Darcy was trying to follow the social script that she was given, but then realized like it was incompatible with her. So she, for example, couldn't stay with Ben, couldn't have a baby, couldn't keep doing it.
Yeah.
But her mom and Joy's mom did it, and I wanted them to be like, I wanted them to show how that potentially impacted them also in ways that are also, things that you might feel compassion for, things that you might realize like, oh, I see what happened to you there. And regardless of you, and I do see like your original question about them like reaching peace. I do think Darcy needs to have boundaries with her mom. I think,
Yeah.
I would hope that she would continue to go to therapy and maybe talk about her mom. And I see that as being,
Hmm.
yeah, that's not completely resolved, but I do see like her mom is not unforgivable, and as someone that Darcy could see, could feel compassion for. Yeah.
Yeah, the patriarchy really takes no prisoners. Like it fucks us all up.
Yeah.
Um, so I also really want to talk about the ending where we find out Sammy, who's been emailing Darcy this whole time about birds, turns out is Declan's daughter. And I, oh, one second, how do I mute someone? Um, Sorry about that. Um, can you talk about that decision to include that twist? Because I truly did not see that coming. And like, do you think that Sammy really didn't know how to use Google to like find out her questions about birds, or like was she just really looking for someone to trust?
Yeah, I was seeing that as like, I had a lot of detail that I eventually didn't keep in the book to explain why that was the way that Sammy
Mm,
was dealing with this. ultimately, obviously, I wanted her story to show the importance of having access to information for everyone, including
Mm.
the children of people who are maybe pushing these things. The reality is that everyone is negatively impacted by not having access to information. Um, but yeah, I was imagining that I was thinking that her search, there's something called the Duggar family has it. They have like censorship blockers on their computers so they can't look at certain things.
Oh,
It's called something with eyes, and it sends like they're like for example, the men, their search history is sent to their wives to
yep,
show that they're not watching porn. I can't remember what
yep.
it's called.
I
Yeah,
have seen this. There was
yeah,
like some creepy Republican senator who was like, "Yep, every time I watch porn, my son knows, and every time my son
exactly,
is so
exactly.
weird." But yeah, that
Yeah,
makes so
so I
much
was
sense that that's the
picturing
reason.
Yeah, I was picturing Sammy as having a computer with like restricted parental controls, and but she was able to send emails, and so I was seeing that as like that's sort of the background that I envisioned, but it's not. I don't think that's reflected in the book. But yeah, I was imagining her living in a house where her computer access is really restricted, and she
Mhm.
would have to email the library in order to get information. And I saw her
Oh
as
my God.
writing those emails to begin with to sort of suss out how it worked and to get a
Mm,
sense for. I see this in library. This is my own experience. Is that sometimes people need to feel like a level of rapport or trust with
yeah.
you before they would actually ask you something vulnerable. So that was
Yeah.
also the train of thought there.
Oh, I love that. Just building rapport, talking about birds.
Yes.
I'm obsessed with her. Um, okay, well, what's next? Anything you can share? What are you excited about? What are you working on? What's happening? Just literally anything you want to share with the class.
Like in terms of what I'm working on right now, I'm thinking a lot about unions is what I'm hyper fixating on right now. So I
Mm,
think my next book might have to do with that. There's a book that I read recently that I wanted to recommend called Nymph. Have you heard of this yet? It's
nymph.
coming out.
Ooh,
I feel
I
like
will
you would
put this
like
in the
it. So
chat. Yeah, nymph.
it would be a good candidate for your book club. It's by Sophia Montrone, I think. It's like
Yeah,
it's the Sapphic
Montrone.
Call Me by Your Name.
Yes,
And
I have this on my Kindle, I believe.
okay, I think you'll like it. It's really like it is very much like the Sapphic Call Me by Your Name. It's very like there's like strong atmosphere to it. It's
Ooh.
set in Italy, and but the main character has also got like a weird element to her that anyway, so I just finished reading that recently, and I thought I would recommend that. But
Oh my
yeah.
God, fun. We can get into the rapid fire round. That was the book I guess you're that you're recommending. What are you
Yeah.
currently reading right now?
I'm reading Wuthering Heights right now, and
Did you see the movie?
I saw the movie, and I had read it when I was like an English major, and I was like, that's not what I remember. I gotta read.
I
um,
maintain that the movie is only enjoyable if you've one, never read the book, or two, you completely just detach the book from the
I think
movie.
if you
Like
detach
it's
the book, I'm like
yeah, it's just
hesitant to
not
say
the
it because I know
book.
people don't exactly. It's not like there's a little bit like it is like yeah okay that's the personality of Heathcliff, sure. There's some things that you're like okay, but one thing also like I do think the criticism Heathcliff is especially in my reread I'm like okay he's not ambiguously a person of color like
Oh yeah,
it's
no,
it's
it's like on page
word
three.
it's right there and it's there over and over and over so that is like really a problem but Wuthering Heights is so good though. I didn't like
Yeah.
it when I was 19 reading it. Now I'm like, I'm really enjoying it. I find it so funny, which I don't remember finding when I was younger. It's like, because they're all grumpy and in this funny way. It's good.
I mean, it's because it's raining all of the time. Like they're just
Yeah.
constantly
And
wet.
they're all dying of
Yeah.
tuberculosis. Like it's horrible, but
Everything is
yeah,
tuberculosis.
it's terrible. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, really enjoying that. What else am I reading? I'm reading what am I reading? I'm reading You'll Love It Here by Natalie Sue. She wrote I Hope This Finds You Well. which is I hope this finds you well. It was like uh an office comedy sort of. It's about this
Mhm.
character who I would say is neurodivergent, who is not well liked in her office environment, and she gets access to everyone's emails, and it's funny.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a fun read. And anyway, this author has a new book coming out that I'm reading now that is also, this one's set in an apartment building. And it has to do with her, like her neighbors, and I've just started it, but I'm enjoying it. So it's a
I love
funny
that.
Natalie
No,
Sue is
that's
good.
a good balance. You can't read like a massive classic without the hee hee ha ha of a contemporary neurodivergent
So I am
mess.
finding the classic hysterical, frankly. I'm finding it really funny.
I love that. Do you have a favorite library memory? Like as a kid or as an adult or both? Like just like when you think of your time in the library, is there a memory that stands out?
I do. I remember my mom taking me to I think of like positive things. Like it would probably be funnier to mention like a terrible thing, but I remember my mom taking me and my siblings to the public library, and we had this the library had this like stuffed dragon that I remember thinking was enormous. It was like large, but then I went there when I was older, and it was like 3 foot tall, which is a funny funny memory. I
Wait,
remember
that's
being like,
really cute. I
yeah,
love that.
yeah,
I mean that like that's just like the beauty of being a kid
yeah,
is thinking everything is like
huge.
larger than
Yeah,
life around
yeah,
you.
yes.
Um, if you could have dinner with anyone dead or alive right now, who would it be?
Whenever I think about that, there are people that I would want to have, like, who I think are more interesting or whatever, but I think about how awkward the interaction would be. So it would need to be someone that I would actually feel like I'm happy to have this conversation. And lately, I've been feeling that way strongly about Rosie O'Donnell. I find Rosie
Mm,
O'Donnell very funny. And
that is
like,
so funny.
she's such a funny person. And like, I appreciate her. She sometimes does things where she's not afraid to say the wrong thing and then apologize, which I really
Hmm.
admire in a person. And I find her very like mask off in a way that I
Hmm.
find comfortable. Maybe I'm wrong. This is my impression of her from her like rambling on, she'll ramble on TikTok live. And
It's
she's
so
like,
funny.
yeah,
So my father-in-law was friends with Rosie O'Donnell in high school,
really? Oh my God.
Long Island, and
That's cool.
just a hoot and a half of a person from the stories I
I
hear.
think
I
she
think y'all
is.
would have a great dinner.
And her like hatred for Donald Trump is so funny. Like it's
Oh, it's
terrible. It's
hilarious. It's
upsetting, but
yeah.
it's also like if that were a book, if it's like this like lesbian comedian has this like hatred for, it's just funny. I find her endearing and
Maybe you should write a lesbian comedian for your next book who hates some. I mean, you kind of you had the mayor
it's a
in
little, yeah.
yeah,
And
it's a
it's
little
so
similar.
depressing to write. It's hard to write about like these awful politicians now when it's like it's not funny because it's like this is the humor has been taken out of it, unfortunately. you
I'm
know
sorry on behalf of
I
America.
know it's not your fault.
It's definitely not my fault. Okay, favorite queer movie or TV show at the minute?
Oh, at the minute, I did like Heated Rivalry. I thought when I first started the first episode, I was like, this is probably not for me, and it like solidified that I'm definitely not attracted to men. I was like, this is clearly for a different demographic. I was like, I respect this, but I don't know. But then once you get to episode 5, I was like, oh, it's so sweet,
It's
and
so tender.
it's so sweet. So I
Yeah.
did like Heated Rivalry.
Yeah. Who said yearning was just for sapphics? These
Exactly.
bottom-eyed
Gay hockey players.
men can can yearn too.
Yeah. And I gotta say, like
Um,
growing up in Canada, hockey players are not, that is not, I appreciate the rebrand a little bit because that's not,
mhm.
uh, and as evidenced by some recent behavior, that's clearly not representative of the truth. But I like the romanticized view.
Yeah, conservative men are deeply submissive to authority figures.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That is what it is. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Okay, y'all. So let's have some questions in the chat for Emily. I have one on Discord um from Carissa. Um noticed in your previous novels, you've used less common names for your main characters. That seems to have changed a little bit with this novel. We have Darcy and Joy. What sparked the change? I did notice this. I feel like you kind of lean like Scandinavian grandma with,
That's
some of your
true.
previous
Yeah. Yeah.
MCs. So talk about Darcy and Joy's name choice.
Darcy's name, I think honestly, I asked people's opinions. I gave like a list of names to some of the folks who, read my books behind the scenes, and they were like, "Oh, I feel like Darcy is good, gender neutral. It's not because sometimes names are repeated in contemporary literary fiction in a way that is tired." So anyways, did that, and then Joy was like really heavy-handed, like a
Yeah,
really heavy-handed queer Joy name, and I thought someone would stop me at some point. I thought someone would be like, it's a little too, nobody stop me. And Joy is actually such a cute name. I work with a woman
so
named Joy,
cute.
and I'm like, that's a cute name.
No, and like I loved their house so much. I loved their like little routine of like having their, drinks on the dock and like their
Yeah.
sweet little like creaky cottage. I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
this is the future we all deserve." Um, Allison asks best Ottawa cafe and library branches to write at.
Oh, that's fun. Okay, I like Black Squirrel Books is a bookstore that combines like old and new books, and it has a cafe. And the basement is like it feels like a storage room, which is fun. You get to like pick through a ton of books, so that's a good one.
Mm.
Um, Rosemount Library is a good one. What's the other one that I'd like to go to? Sunnyside, I think is the one that I like, and it's close to Black Squirrel Books. So if you're in Ottawa,
Love. I went to Canada for the first time you and I
oh yeah, you
DM'd
went to
about this. Yeah,
Montreal. Yeah,
I went
yeah,
to Montreal for a wedding in
yeah.
September. Loved it. I would like to go
Montreal's
back
nice, especially.
to other Canadian cities.
I
I
don't know if
very
you
much
should go
enjoyed
to
myself.
Ottawa as your next. To be honest, I feel like heated rivalry has been nice for Ottawa tourism, but it is very much it's a government. I went to Washington recently for this book, and vibe wise, very similar.
To
That's
DC?
yes, yeah. It's
Ah,
it's
okay,
like
heard.
it's the capital. It's that's what it is.
Okay,
So
got
it's
it.
there's nice things about it. Don't get me wrong, but depends what you're looking for.
We have another question. Which of your main characters now is your favorite or the one that you feel the most emotion towards?
Oh, that's a hard question. To be honest, when I finish writing a book, I forget a lot of it, and it's sort of tough to even
Yeah.
like but I think I probably just because everyone in this room was my first book, and I wrote that book really strongly thinking that no one would ever read it. There is a level
Mm,
of like that being sort of that feeling a little bit like Gilda, the character, feeling a little bit
mm,
more precious to me, maybe. And
mm.
I think also with your first book, um, I it kind of feels like when you write a book, it feels like it is in a way like the output of the time that you spent writing it. So, the last year or two that you spent is sort of in some ways, especially if you were the one rereading it, you'd be like, oh, I remember why I wrote that. It was because this was
Yeah.
going on, and I remember. And with your first book, it's sort of your whole life up until that point, which is a little bit more, just makes it a little bit more special, I think. So I would
Mm.
I would say Gilda, I guess. Yeah.
I love that. Valerie says, first of all, thank you for writing my favorite books ever.
Oh,
Reading
thanks.
Is This a Cry for Help was so fun as a lesbian reference librarian. We love. There's so many librarians in Sapph-Lit. It makes me so happy. Will you continue to include boy genius in your future books?
Well, I don't think they're gonna make any more albums, so that's
Ugh,
we'll seems like
don't
they will.
say that.
But the individual boys, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure. I was just seeing there's so much on social media of Lucy and Julian were like a fashion show. They look so
Yeah,
cute.
it's like Paris Fashion Week and they're
Yeah,
like adorable.
they're
I
really
I love all
adorable.
of the content.
Yeah.
But Muna is coming out with a new
Yes,
album.
that's
So
exciting.
we have a little bit of that pop trio,
I've
music
been hearing
coming
that
our way.
apparently Phoebe has something like I don't know if that's true, but I
Ooh.
heard whisperings of that. Apparently her mom posted something on Instagram or something.
a mom thing to do. Post a
Yeah,
leak.
I think she did. I'm not sure, but that's what I saw.
Oh my gosh. Melanie asks, how long did it take you to write Is This a Cry for Help? And do you have a writing ritual?
Um, so the way that I write books generally is I would start to write a book and then I would reach like page 50 and then convince myself that it's the worst thing that anyone's ever written and tuck it away. And then I would start to write something else. So I would say that I started writing Is This a Cry for Help? Maybe like 4 years ago, but I wouldn't have been like writing it. I was also writing it while I was writing other things, would have put it away and then come back to it. So it's hard to say, like duration wise, it was probably like like 3 or 4 years. But if I were a more dutiful writer who really committed to what I was doing, it would probably have been like a year and a half. I don't have a writing ritual. I don't I generally will write like manically over a short period of time because I have a job too, right? Like I have things go. So normally it would be like, oh, it's the weekend and I don't have any plans. I'm gonna just like try to write the entire weekend. I don't do anything healthy. I'm not like waking up at 6 and following the way that I think would be potentially a better way to write. But no, I don't.
Oh, there is no better way. It's whatever works. And then Clara asks, how do you handle writer's block?
I think anytime I feel like I can't write something, I tell myself that that's when I should read more, and I found
Mm,
that pretty helpful. And a hot tip is to not just read good books, but to read really bad ones because that will help you feel like you can write a book. And that's like a weird thing that has happened to me since being a writer because sometimes people will say, "What are you reading right now?" And the truth is, I'm reading something awful, but I'm like, I'm
yeah,
not going to mention it, but I'm going to read the whole thing because this is helping me. But yeah, I think in general, I would say I would put the book away and I would read. I would potentially, I like to ruminate about music, so I might like listen
yeah.
to more music or I'm rarely in a position where um, I have to be writing, and I've never had in the editing process, for example, I don't generally have writer's block when I have like a committed book where I have like a deadline. So
Mm.
because it's helpful, because normally you're like given a list of things to do. It'll be like you need to do
Yeah.
this, this, and this, and you're like, okay,
Yeah,
that's easy enough.
that's what the neurodivergents need.
Exactly. You told me exactly what to do. I will do it. That's no problem. So the only time that I actually do have it tends to be when it's the only one impacted is me. Like no one is, it doesn't affect much. So I just am kind of like, okay, it's not a time where I'm writing right now.
Amazing. Anything else you want to share with the Sapph-Litties on the call or in the future YouTube space?
Oh, hello, folks in the future YouTube. No, I just wanted to say thanks so much. I've met some people from Sapph-Lit, like in these bookish events that I've gone to, and not just in the States too, in places in Canada. So hey, to any of you that are here, it's so cool that this is all over the place, and we've connected here. It's such a nice community, and it's so nice of you to read my books. Thanks for including me here.
Oh my gosh, always. Thank you so much for your time, for your characters, for your words. We adore you. And hopefully we'll see you for a future Sapph-Lit pick down the line.
Yeah, hopefully. I'm
All
excited
right.
for Saturn Returning to come out too.
Oh
That'll be
yeah,
exciting.
May
Yeah.
5th, y'all.
Yeah.
Sapph-Lit's first book. Emily blurbed it, said the nicest thing. So pre-order that, please. That would be nice. All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a lovely rest of your Saturday. All right.
Bye all.
Bye.